everybody. So this is a follow-up video to my previous video where I show the actual bubble head that was used on the Lost in Space robot, which was later reused in a TV show called Mystery Island, a Saturday morning kids show. And so at the end of that video I kind of hinted towards this piece, which was also used on that show. So Mystery Island, of course, was a Saturday morning kids show, which was a show within a show of another show called The Skatebirds. And so it was these bird characters, people dressed in bird costumes, skating around on roller skates. And within that show, they had live action shows and cartoons. And one of the shows was called Mystery Island. And so the robot from Lost in Space was reused in that show, but he looked much different. And you can check that video out because I talk all about that in the other video. But the bad guys in those episodes also wore all these little wrist communicators. These were the little wrist communicators that they would talk into whenever they wanted to talk to Doctor Strange. And so all the bad guys wore these. But this particular one was the hero one. This is the one that actually has the working lights on it. So I'm guessing that the other guys, the other henchmen, probably wore stunt versions of these. They were probably maybe rubber. I don't know. They may have been made of metal, but they probably weren't as nice as this one. This one was used for all the close-ups, and Krieg was the main bad guy. He was the one that wore this one, and there's at least 3 episodes that I know of where you get a really good close-up of this, and you can see all the lights blinking on the front here, and they have a particular way that they blink. And he was the only one that wore the hero version of this. And oddly, the actor that played Krieg on the show, I mean, you could clearly tell his voice was dubbed. And I don't know why, because the guy that ended up doing the voice of Krieg was the second voice actor to play Fred Flintstone. The original voice actor was Alan Reed, and he passed away. And then they had the next actor, and I don't know the gentleman's name, but he would be the one that would do Fred's voice for quite a while in other cartoons, and he, oddly enough, does the voice of Krieg. So I've always wondered what that actor's voice sounded like, you know, for real, and why they decided to dub his voice. It's very strange. So anyway, here on YouTube, you can check out episodes of Mystery Island. I know there's at least 3, so just look up Mystery Island 1977 or something like that. That's when the show came out, and you'll see it. It's just it was a Saturday morning kid show, you know, a goofy little kid show, but it was fun. I used to love it just because of the robot. So yeah, this is one of the original screen used hero wrist communicators. So let me show you some clips from the episode so you get an idea what these lights look like and how they were used on the show. Okay, now here's a scene from one of the episodes. Now you can clearly see Krieg. He's the main guy right here in the center. He's talking on his wrist communicator, and he's got the antenna extended. And then everybody else you can see is wearing one as well. This guy here on the side, you can see his right there, and then this guy's here. But theirs looks a little less detailed if I can zoom in on it. You can see there's no detail on it. It looks like it's just smooth metal. And same with that guy's right there. And you can also see how it looks like they might have taped it around their arms or something, because those bands don't actually go all the way around. So I'm not exactly sure how they put them around their wrists, but that's Krieg right there. Now let me show you one of the scenes where where you can see a close-up of it and you can see the lights. Okay, I'll find the scene with the lights here in just a minute, but I keep finding these other scenes because now it looks like in this particular scene, and this is from a different episode, this actor is now wearing the hero wrist communicator. I don't think the stunt ones had the lights on it, the little holes where the lights are. And so I'm guessing that was the case. Since this got a close-up in this particular scene, this guy ended up wearing the hero one. Also, this is unusual because you rarely ever got to see this side of the prop. You rarely ever got to see the on-off knob, the little slider switch that's going on here, and the speaker grill. So most of the time when they would show those, Krieg was always talking into it and he was facing him, so the camera only got to see this side of it. So that's kind of an unusual view of it right there, which is pretty cool. Okay, so here's a real quick clip of it that shows up at the beginning of this particular episode. You can just barely see the lights blinking in it, but there's another episode that has a better look at it, but this one I thought I would just go ahead and show you. So it's just a real quick clip right here. So that's where you can see it really good and close. Also of note, you can see on the handles, or the little wristbands that go around his wrist, you can see that piece of tape right there, or whatever that is, but you can really kind of see it right there. But yeah, that's a really good close-up of it. It's unfortunate it was filmed outside, so you can't really see the lights very good in this particular scene, but there's another one where it shows it a little better. Okay, so this is the episode where you get to see it the best. I only have 10 episodes and there's 16 total, so there may be, out of the other 6 episodes that I don't have, there may be even a better close-up, but this one's pretty good, where you can see the lights really good. So I'll just show a real quick clip here. So there you can really see how the lights are blinking and the pattern they're doing it. Here, let me do it again. Alright, so there you can get a really good look at it. So here you can see all the details in it. So it's a real quick scene, so that's why I had to just kind of show some real quick clips of it before the camera pulls back. But now you can kind of see all the details on it. And so Krieg is the one that's wearing that one. But yeah, there's about, well, at least 3 scenes that I know of where they show it really close up and you can see the lights. But the other 2 scenes were outside. But this one is inside of a cave, so you can really see the lights really good. Okay, so now here we are looking at the actual piece as it is today. So this thing, I actually am shocked that it survived all these years. This piece is 43 years old as of the making of this video. This is August of 2020. That show was made in August of 1977, so almost exactly 43 years to probably close to the day that they started filming that show. And so it was filmed in the summer of 1977, and the show came out in the winter of 1977 and the beginning of 1978. So on Saturday mornings, they would always have a kind of like a preview of the cool shows that were coming up on Saturday morning. And I remember seeing a preview of that show, and it showed the robot, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to see what that show is, what that show's about, because it's going to have the robot on it. And of course, I was shocked to see how different he looked. And so, and that show only ran for 16 episodes, like I mentioned, and the show never had an ending to it. You know, it was one of those, every episode ended with a cliffhanger, so like a serial kind of show, you know, and they always had the announcer like, will Sue get out of this sticky situation or something like that, and then, you know, they say, tune in next time on Mystery Island, you know, that kind of a thing. And so it was kind of one of those kind of shows. And but, you know, the show was probably canceled before they could ever, you know, end it, like many shows back in the day. That's kind of how all of that was. And so they never got off the island. You never know if whatever happened to the characters. It was just, well, you know, a one series or one season and done kind of situation. So anyway, so yeah, it's this is all metal. It's not, you know, it's like not plastic or anything. It's all metal. Underneath here you can see the arm bands, and you can see it's made of this I don't know, it's almost like it's a dried out leather or something. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I mean, this thing is so old, you can see it's just kind of deteriorated over the years. And it looks like they pop riveted these pieces into the bottom base plate here. This one here is a little loose, but this one here is nice and solid. And you can see the screws there, so that would enable them to be able to take off this top section here from the bottom. There's the lights, and these are the old, I think they called them grain of wheat bulbs back in the day, because they didn't have LEDs back then. Of course, we would have nothing but LEDs in here now, but they're these tiny light bulbs. And I'll turn it on here just a little bit so you can see the lights. And unfortunately, two of the lights burnt out. The rest of them still work, but 2 of the bulbs are burnt out at this point. And so I don't know if they're burnt out or they just came disconnected. And I'll show you the electronics on the inside, or what we can see of them, because you can tell it's very old. Here's the knob to turn the lights on and off. It's very fragile, very fragile, so I'm always very careful with that. This is the antenna that Krieg was always pulling up. He'd pull it out like this, and he'd extend it out, you know, like you'd see him doing on the show. And it extends completely out, just like it did on the show, and you can see the little kind of rut that it would sit in. And it's kind of cool, because you can see how they hand cut this little cutout right here, because, you know, once they put this in here, they realized that your fingers can't grip it, so they needed to give a little finger hole right there. So it's cool that the prop guys, you know, accommodated that. This is the side that you rarely ever got to see on the show. In fact, it was very rare. Oh, that was the, sorry about that. I'll talk about that in just a second here. Let me put this over here. But so yeah, this is the side that you rarely ever got to see. And I got to be careful with this, because it pushes in really easy. But you can see how the gold kind of aluminum, I don't know what this is, like a lame or something. I don't know what they call this stuff, but you can see it's kind of flaked off over the years because of how old it is. And then here's the little slider switch, and you never got to see this used on the show, but this thing actually kind of slides back and forth like this, and you can actually see how it looks like it was clear, but it was painted black, and the black paint has come off, probably because of, you know, the actors playing around with it or something like that. So it's kind of a neat little thing considering it was on a, a kid show. And so here's the cover. Now that's what fell off. So when I got this prop, and I'll explain the story about that. So this is the original cover on one side, and when I got it, it was missing this side. So it had a missing piece. So I made this piece out of metal so that it would just fit right in here. Well, of course I can't keep it in there now. But so here's the electronics. So let me shine a light down in there and I'll try to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'm not sure how good you're going to be able to see this. I'm trying to shine the light in there just right, but you can see how old this is. First of all, the original 9-volt battery clip it just looks old. And so do the electronics. Now, I wish I could get the lighting in there. You can see one of the components back there. So this was like a handmade electronic circuit in there, and it's pretty crammed in there the way they got it. And you can see, I don't know if I can get the lights, you can see the wires up there where the lights are. And so they crammed it all in here, and it was all, made from scratch. It wasn't like a pre-made thing. And once again, it was before, I mean, we could probably make this circuit now on a tiny little circuit board now, and then the LEDs would be just an LED strip. I mean, it wouldn't take up hardly any of the room that this takes up now. So kind of shows you how much things have changed in 43 years. What's interesting too, and I don't know if you can see it, but you can see a little bit of the writing on the board right there. So on the top part there, it has the date of 8/1977. So August of 1977 is when they probably went into production for this show, and this prop was made. In the middle it says Chaser 1, I think is what it says. Chase 1 or Chaser 1, meaning the Chaser light circuit. And then on the bottom it has like the volts DC or something like that. I can't quite read it. It kind of goes way back in there. It's like 11 volts DC or something. I can't see it quite in there, but it's neat that whoever wrote that in there, never knew that this thing would still be around all these years later. But yeah, so that's the original electronics in there, and it's very interesting to see what it looks like. And everything's all original. It's all original to the day that it was used on the show. So it's really, really cool. Okay, so I've hooked up a 9-volt battery to it, and I'll turn on the lights so you can see how they look. And you'll see they go in the same pattern as they did on the show. Now this switch is very, very fragile, so I have to be very careful. But now you can see how they're blinking like that. And I don't know, I mean, for me, it's, I don't know if I can keep it in there without holding it. Anyway, it's amazing to me that, that these still work after all this time. Now you'll notice this one here is burnt out, and the one right here in the middle is burnt out right there. Oh no, that one's working, it's that one. Okay, yeah, so there's two that are burnt out. And those two might be actually connected to the same thing and they just came disconnected, I don't know. But I think it's really cool that they still work. I mean, I was shocked to see that these still worked. So yeah, I think that's so cool. I mean, it's amazing. So I guess I can tell you the interesting history of, how I got this piece, or, the little story of how I got it. Oh, actually here, look at that. Oh, I was going to say, I got it to stay on. Oh, it's kind of weird now. They're just kind of doing their own thing now. Well, that's pretty neat. Well, it's nice that that works. This switch is really, when I first got it, I was scared I was going to, I thought it was a click switch where you clicked it on, but it's actually just a very fragile thing. I mean, if you turn it too tight, you can hear something grinding in there, so I had to be really careful. So the first time I did it, I thought I broke it, but thankfully everything works. But yeah, that's neat. So I got it working without all the, without having to hold the switch. All right, so let me tell you the story of how I got this thing. Well, you know what? I just decided to leave it on while I'm telling you the story. Okay, so believe it or not, I found this on eBay. I don't remember how many years ago. It's been quite some time now. And the minute I saw it, I knew exactly what it was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And so I clicked on it immediately, and the description said something like a sci-fi communication device or something like that, or wrist radio or something like that. So the seller didn't know what it was. He just knew it was some kind of like a wrist radio type of thing. And so I bid on it, and I don't think anybody bid against me. I mean, that shows you how absolutely obscure this show is. Plus the way he listed it, if he had said Mystery Island wrist communicator from 1977 or something, and then I'm sure that would have gotten a lot more hits, as far as, bids on it. But I'm glad it didn't, because, it was less competition for me to get this thing. So, so yeah, that worked out really good. But anyway, so I managed to win it, and then I emailed him or messaged him and told him, thank you so much for this thing. This is so cool to get this piece. It's, just amazing that it's still around. And he wrote me back a couple days later, and he goes, you seem to know an awful lot about this thing. He goes, would you please explain to me what it is? And so I told him about the Mystery Island TV show, and I was telling him about, the show and the robot and all that stuff. And he wrote back about a day later, and he's like, oh, he says, well, that explains everything. He says, because it's always been a mystery to me what this was. He says, well, here's the story. He says, back in the late 70s, I worked for Hanna-Barbera. Hanna-Barbera is the company that produced Mystery Island and the Skatebirds and a lot of other shows back then. And so he said, I worked for that company. He says I was a puppeteer for them, which makes sense because a lot of the kid shows had puppety type things. And he said that one day he was looking around, and he saw in the trash can or the trash bin, he saw this thing. It was this prop. It was sitting there. And so he decided to keep it because they were going to throw it away anyway, because he thought he could use the electronics for another puppet, possibly like a robot puppet or something like that. Well, he just never got around to it, and he threw it in a box, and it was sitting in his basement for 30 years. For 30 years it sat there. So you figure, what is that, 87, 97, oh, that's probably 2007 is when he finally found this thing, and decided to sell it because he just wasn't going to use it for anything. And so all these years it was just sitting in his basement, never to be seen again. And then here it is, it pops up on eBay, and I couldn't believe it, and I got it. And so yeah, that was really cool. So it turns out the guy worked for Hanna-Barbera, and that's where he had acquired this piece, and that's why it was in such good shape considering its age, because it had not been used on anything else. So this is exactly the way it looked when it was used on the show, minus the tape that they would put on these bands to wrap around the actors' arms. But it's really cool. This has not been altered in any way. It's exactly the way we saw it in those clips and on the show. And so I think it's really, really cool that this thing has survived for over 4 decades, and it still exists. So whenever, it's just, for me, I mean, as obscure as that show is, this is just such a cool piece. It's so obscure. And it's a piece of, Hollywood history. It's a piece of television history. You don't see these kinds of things anymore. And just the way that they made this kind of stuff back in the day, it's like very simple, but it was effective on the show, and as a kid, it was a kid show especially. So as a kid, I loved this show, and I never in my wildest dreams did I ever think, watching that show, that I would own this piece one day, that I would actually own Krieg's hero Communicator, or the robot's actual bubble that was used on the robot's head. And so it just boggles my mind to watch that show now. So yeah, but anyway, that show, like I said, you can still find episodes of it on YouTube. I think I found 3 episodes, but I wish all of them were on there. So from what I could tell, or just from researching the show, I think it was filmed in Australia. And like I said, the episode's only 16. They were only 10 to 12 minutes long, so they were just short little things. So it wasn't like a full half-hour show. Since it was on the Skatebirds hour, it was part of that show. I did find one episode where I was telling you Krieg's voice was dubbed by the guy that did Fred Flintstone's voice. And there is one episode I was watching, and for just one brief line, you can hear the actor's actual voice. For some reason, they forgot to dub over it. And now in hearing it, I think it's possible they changed his voice because he sounded too much like the character Chuck on the show. And so maybe when the two were talking to each other, and maybe it was a far shot, you wouldn't be able to tell, especially as kids, which actor was talking. So it's possible that's why they dubbed over his voice. And also because the Fred Flintstone voice sounds much more mean and gruff. And so that's another reason why I think they probably dubbed over his voice. But I do find that it's kind of strange that they did that. Anyway, so yeah, that's the story behind this piece, and it's really cool to have it. It's just one of these off-the-wall things that have managed to survive over the years. I mean, hardly anybody would even know what this is, but it's fun to share it with you guys because some of you may know exactly what this is, and you're looking at this and you're getting fond memories of the show like I did from watching. Saturday mornings were so cool. You used to get up and watch these cartoons. I'd get up at 6 in the morning and watch TV until 11:30 because that's when the last cartoon would air. And at that time they were coming out with all kinds of live action shows like Land of the Lost and Sigmund and the Sea Monster and Lost Saucer and oh god, it was like just Lost, Far Out Space Nuts. It was like Gilligan's Island in space with Gilligan, the Bob Denver. And then they had like Space Academy that had Dr. Smith, Jonathan Harris from Lost in Space. That was such a cool show. And then what followed after that was Jason of Star Command. And of course we had things like Shazam and ISIS. I mean, there was so many cool shows to watch back then. And so yeah, I mean, it was like the highlight of Saturday mornings. I'd sit there with my bowl of Lucky Charms and just watch TV all morning. And then as soon as the cartoons were over, I would go out and start mowing lawns because I had to make money. So I had my own lawn mowing business. So on Saturdays, I would make sure I try to get as many lawns in. But anyway, yeah, such fun times back then. Brings back such memories. Anyway, I'll leave a link in the description down below to my video that shows the bubble, the actual bubble that was used on the robot from this show, in case you haven't seen it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. It's another one of these kind of off-the-wall props, but I hope you enjoy these kinds of things. And if you did, please give a like and subscribe if you'd like. Hit the bell. I guess that helps as well. And so I appreciate every one of you watching. I always appreciate all of you watching. So thank you again, and I hope your day is great. Take it easy.